the criminal gender gap, a new study shows women tend to be more honest in the workplace. And the few women who help others conduct fraud do it for little personal gain. I don't know if that's good. What makes women less likely to commit corporate crimes and conspiracies? Here now is Susan Ox, senior fellow at the Aspen Institute. We also have psychologist Dr. Woody Woodward and Hadley Heath from the Independent Women's Forum. Welcome to all of you. I'm gonna get a medical opinion first to get us off on the right foot here, Dr. Woody. 3 out of 4 conspiracies to commit corporate fraud were all male. There wasn't a single woman involved. And they say, because I read this closely, that they controlled for the fact that women are less represented in higher ranks in the workplace. I'm not sure how they did that. But they claim that it's not a result of there being less women higher up in the workforce. I don't know if I believe that, but what's your take, Dr. Woody?
Yeah, a couple things. Well, first of all, I'm a PhD psychologist, so not quite the medical opinion, but the psychologist opinion
Yes, okay.
for that purposes.
Very honest of you. You get honesty points for that, which is what this is all about.
I'm here to represent
okay.
honesty. I'm doing my best. So the one thing I'll say is keep in mind that, one of the things you mentioned is I don't know how well it was controlled for the opportunity for fraud, because there certainly women are not well represented in the executive ranks, which is what they were really looking for here. But the other thing to keep in mind is that for the most part, we kind of nurture and reward aggression in men. And we tend to denigrate aggression in women, both in corporate America and certainly in the media. And so to be successful in corporate America and to move up the ranks, what happens is we tend to reward men for standing out, stepping on toes, bending rules. And so it's no surprise that once they get to the top, they're more likely to do that type of behavior versus their female counterpart. You
know, Susan, sort of building on that point, they said 3 of the women in the group were identified as ringleaders in terms of the criminals here. 165 males were the ringleaders. To me, does this say that women are not criminals or we're not leaders? I mean, like, that was kind of my takeaway. Are we honest, or is it that we can't get anyone to follow us into fraud?
Well, that's
what I'm worried about.
I also love the fact that you're worried that we can't get people to follow us into fraud.
Yes, right. Well, I don't know.
I actually also love the fact that even in crime, women do not have pay parity.
Right, that's right. We're
not reaping enough reward, ill-gotten gains from the same amount of crime. Now, one of the things to realize here is that we did have a number of what you would call high-profile or senior women who were involved in kind of wrongdoing recently. So there was the woman at MF Global. Now, was she the ringleader? Probably not, but she was the one that transferred the funds illegally. The CFO of Lehman Brothers was a woman. There are enough sort of dotted along the way that I think we have to be a little careful about making too broad a kind of generalization.
Maybe those are the 3 we were just talking about there. 3 women were identified. I don't know. Yeah. Hadley, more than half, I mean, this goes to another point that Susan just made. So more than half of the women who were involved in criminal acts made no profit, but 26% of the males earned between $500,000 and $1 million, and 33% of the men made more than $1 million. So the bottom line is the women who were involved weren't even profiting. There's not pay parity in crime either.
Well, I think the pay parity question is a different topic entirely. I think the wage differences that remain among men and women in the workforce are largely attributable to other variables.
Don't take that question seriously. Come on. I'm saying in this case that they're not. Right. They're certain we're disempowered even in a financial crime setting.
I don't feel disempowered, but I think that in terms of high risk, high reward, men have a higher tolerance for risk. And this has more to do with, I believe, risk tolerance than it has to do with honesty or dishonesty. There are gender-based attitudes and behaviors that men exhibit and women exhibit in the workplace, just like we do outside of the workplace. But these statistics are consistent with other crime statistics. Men are more likely to be criminals in almost every area of crime.
What do you, go ahead.
That's true. I guess to what you're saying is the glass ceiling is in full effect when it comes to corporate fraud, it sounds like, because as you mentioned, the women who get into it tend to do it more for the company's sake in a lot of cases as opposed to their own personal gain. But I think to Hadley's point is men do tend to commit more crime. And I think overall, and I think what we're looking at, one of the big challenges here is what do we reward? What is leadership, and how do we define that? And how do we make it more maybe female friendly, or how do we get away from too much
so that we're encouraged to go
stuff.
into crime as well. Susan,
Right.
what you want to address the point about the risk tolerance, because I thought that was a really interesting point. You don't think that women have
I don't
lower
necessarily
risk
correlate
tolerance?
risk to illegal activity. I do think that that's a bit of a stretch to say any risk taker just follows
Taking
the
the risk
continuum.
of getting
But I did
caught.
want to hold on. I did want to challenge actually the point on do women take the initiative, because what we've also seen is not only are women less likely to be participating in the crime, but they're actually more likely to call it out when they see it. And I would say that's a different kind of personal risk that they take. If you think about the whistleblowers
So
in
what does that
Enron,
tell you? What do you make
in
of it?
Enron and WorldCom, in an FBI scandal recently, several years ago, they're the ones who step up and say that something bad's been happening here. So I don't think it's just about the glass ceiling, and I don't think it's just about a risk tolerance in the kind of traditional sense.
You think we're just more honest?
I do.
Hadley, what do you think about that?
You know, with any of these sort of statistical differences that we see in studies between the two gender groups, they're very interesting, and I think it's reasonable to acknowledge gender differences, but we shouldn't extend them to the universal limit of assuming that all men are dishonest and all women are honest. Of course, we know that's not the case, and the best managers know how to find the strengths and weaknesses in their workers and use those to the company's benefit.
Yes, and it's always fun to discuss. Thanks to all three of you. We appreciate it. Next on Money, it took a month to come up with this.